Good morning, everybody. Thank you for attending Beyond the Buzz. And my name's Trevor Woods. I'm the Executive Director here at the Northern Plains UAS test site. I'm going to talk a little bit about the test site, a little bit of overview, a little bit of our capabilities, a little bit of our history here this morning. And so I'll kind of just scratch the surface on many of the topics or projects that we are part of as the test site. Each one of these are worthy of their own presentation, which I'm sure can show up another time in a future Beyond the Buzz. So with that, thank you for listening to this, and we'll just keep going here with the presentation. So the test site has officially been designated since December 30th of 2013. However, UAS, the history inside North Dakota has gone back all the way to 2005 with our past political leaders. Currently, Senator Hoeven, used to be Governor Hoeven, a lot of leadership inside the University of North Dakota, the city of Grand Forks, other leaders from the state of North Dakota saw an opportunity to bring UAS capability to North Dakota all the way back in 2005, as I said earlier. Leveraging a lot of the expertise from the University of North Dakota, the manned aviation program that they've had running there for a long time. We've had a baseline of professional experience and training and education that we were able to utilize in the establishment of the test site. And so around 2011, 2012, we knew that there was going to be this test site program that was on the horizon. The state of North Dakota invested, the resources and the people to put a proposal together, and ultimately came forward to be what we believe to be the premier test site of the test site program. And so what you'll see here are some pictures from, the University of North Dakota's training fleet. Our political leaders, the day that we were announced that North Dakota was selected as one of the, at that time, 6 test sites. And then a picture of one of our radars out in Western North Dakota, which is part of the Vantas program. Just kind of shows a little bit of progression of where we've gone. The test site, what do we do? Reality is it's kind of whatever our sponsors need us to do. And so as a test site, we really like to focus on integration of technologies, specifically with innovation, research, and policy development. We do things such as flying the aircraft, although more often than not, we are supporting other entities in the operation of their aircraft. Sometimes we provide just simply advisory or consultation services. This is different than what a normal consultant company would do. This is more specialized in navigating regulations and policy and other challenges when it comes to working with the FAA or other federal government agencies that regulate this space. We support research, whether it be the University of North Dakota's research, whether it be North Dakota State University, other entities that bring forth research capabilities and ideas. Ultimately, they are generally looking to take some widget or piece of technology or process or idea, and we're able to create an environment that lets them test and evaluate and iterate their design through numerous operations. And then through our vast network of partnerships, we have access to facilities and assets that, whether it be remote operations in the middle of nowhere, North Dakota, or whether it be working with our Grand Sky partners to get them access to the runways and the capabilities of the Grand Forks Air Force Base. Those are all things and capabilities that we at the test site are able to bring forward. The test site itself is part of the state of North Dakota. And as such, our governor's office has created a process in which we will be overseen through an authority board, or essentially our version of a board of directors. And you will see here that is actually chaired by our lieutenant governor and has 8 offices of the state of North Dakota who oversee our activity. It's done this way because early on in the history of the test site, we realized that we did not fit us easily into any one of these offices, but what we could do as the test site, in fact, could overlap many of these offices and their goals and objectives and what they're trying to achieve. And so instead of having us really just live in one, we operate and are overseen by many of these agencies to ensure that we're acting and operating in the best interest of the state of North Dakota, which is really here to serve and support industry in integration of their UAS. Although we are the North Dakota test site, we have actually operated in 17 other states outside of North Dakota, including the state of Alaska. The the concentration of activity really is in North Dakota. However, sometimes our partners, our sponsors, may require us to bring our services to other parts of the United States. And usually this is just due to efficiency of their operation, access to their resources. Ultimately, a lot of what they do, we believe, eventually makes its way back to North Dakota when they start to advance their operations, such as when they're looking to grow their beyond visual line of sight capability. This is a unique attribute of our test site. This is something that we actually developed from day one, was making sure that the services and what we can do as a test site are transferable to other parts of the United States. And we did that because we kept our focus on real world operations and use cases, meaning that if the test site is going to be valuable for industry, we needed to go where industry needed us. And sometimes that might be out in the Mojave Desert in California, or that might be in parts of Minnesota. But ultimately, doing and working those partnerships allows us to eventually mature their technology, their processes, to needing to get to that beyond visual line of sight, which is continually the challenge for industry today. So some of the things that we have done, call it capabilities or experiences. Again, I'm not going to deep dive any one of these in great detail, but just kind of give you a little snapshot of what we have done over our 10 years, and in fact, coming up on our 11 years now. We really are rooted in detect and avoid experience. That's really what has driven a lot of activity at the test site, is finding the right way to recognize other aircraft in the airspace system, and the technology, the process, the procedure, and the policy to what we call remain well clear. Meaning, in a traditional sense, when you're in the cockpit, you're flying along, the rules and regulations are as such that all pilots in the cockpit will see and avoid each other. But when you're not in the cockpit, we have to find alternative ways of achieving that, which, alternative means of compliance using some electronic system. And we call that detect and avoid. And so we've started, you'll see pictures here of just smaller UAS that we use to evaluate different technologies, algorithms, processes. And you'll see also the term shielded ops, which is using infrastructure close to the ground, whether it be trees or buildings or power lines, where we know traditional aircraft would not be operating and therefore would be safe for a drone to operate. One of our larger programs is a program called the FAA BAA, or Broad Agency Announcement. Really, it's just a generic title, but it's a program in which the FAA has funding that they can partner with industries and the test site to evaluate different concepts of technology. In this example here, you'll see command and control reliability, which is one example of many where industry has an idea or a proposal on something that can help to mature and integrate drones into the airspace. This FAA program is a way to incentivize industry to partner with the test site, go test, validate, and build their prototype so that it can get to a point where it could be commercialized or actually moving forward in integration. We've done a lot of work in drone mitigation and counter UAS. We've done this extensively with our partners at the University of North Dakota. A lot of our federal agencies that have national security in mind, this is a growing area of interest. We're constantly looking to evaluate how do we safely integrate drones into the airspace system, but it's not that far of a stretch to think that whatever I might do that is safe and valuable could also be used for nefarious purposes. And that's really what the purpose and goal of this activity is to see what kinds of systems are out there that can evaluate, we'll call them bad actors or people with nefarious intent. And what would you do in the event of needing to use some kind of technology to take action against that drone. It's not such a high-risk activity for North Dakota, but if you start to think about urban centers, you can start to see how it's interest of our national security agencies to consider this. And so we in North Dakota have supported this type of activity and this type of testing. UAS traffic management, or unmanned traffic management, UTM as it's commonly called. Today in the airspace system, we call it ATM, which is airspace traffic management. It is the legacy or traditional way of doing things with existing systems. However, as drones and unmanned aircraft and advanced air mobility vehicles start to fly more and more in our skies without a pilot necessarily being on board, we have to consider how does our air traffic system support that kind of activity. And UTM is specifically looking at systems that can help automate or communicate between multiple operators operating within the same airspace volumes. This is historically achieved through using air traffic controllers that are managing traffic from aircraft with pilots on board. But there, especially as we get closer to the surface of the Earth, we don't have as many radars out there to be able to track and monitor air traffic. And so the UTM concept is looking at what are the various technologies and processes and protocols needed so that when systems want to fly in our national airspace system, they can do it in a safe way. They can do it to ensure that we are deconflicting from each other. We really break this down into strategic deconfliction and tactical deconfliction. And strategic deconfliction would be making sure that if I'm flying an aircraft, that I fly a specific route, but maybe the other person who wants to fly in the same area takes off 5 minutes later. And so we never intersect because I'm flying 5 minutes ahead of that other person. Tactical deconfliction would be looking at radars, whether they be ground-based or on board, actively looking for other traffic in the airspace system. Once you have those systems, how do they talk to each other? How are you managing that type of workflow? How are you managing that? And how are you doing it in an automated way? That's really kind of at the heart of the UTM concept. And so the test site has had a significant history working with NASA, FAA, Department of Defense in looking and testing at these various UTM systems. From that, we've also recently, in 2024, we're awarded a program that is called Project Ultra, and this is really a project that is many partners that are part of this, specifically the Grand Forks County, Grand Sky, the Grand Forks Air Force Base, the Northern Plains UAS test site, and other industry partners that are taking this UTM concept, but now evaluating it from the perspective of the Department of Defense. When we start to consider the various DoD assets within the United States as well as outside of the United States, we want to make sure that their installations and their properties have systems that allow us to seamlessly evaluate and manage both traditional aircraft as well as UAS drones and AAM vehicles into the future. No doubt this type of technology, drones, AAM vehicles, have a lot of opportunity for bringing value to our Department of Defense, whether it be bringing logistical payloads, whether in the future it is carrying people in a different sense. This technology has a lot of opportunity, but same problem that we have in the National Airspace System, we have to consider how does that traffic integrate inside the airspace and the surrounding area around any Air Force base or Army base or any other Department of Defense property. And so you have to look at the logistics behind it, the transportation response, which is really looking at, again, what happens if there's a nefarious actor or somebody with malicious intent trying to attack a property, and how does autonomy and autonomous systems technology fit into all of this, which is a little bit of a leap than where we're at today. And so this Project Ultra is a program that is sponsored by the Pentagon, really looking at North Dakota to be the leader in developing this capability, testing this capability, and ideally in the future, scaling this capability to other parts of the Department of Defense system. And so with that, we also have another program that was recently awarded in 2024, which is this Department of Agriculture. As you can see, this is another project which is very common with us, where we have multiple partners and industry coming to the table to test capabilities. But you'll see here North Dakota State University, Grant Farm, Thales, iSight, and the test site are testing the use of drones and sensors for looking at noxious weeds and other areas of interest with NDSU. And so another great capability, a growing capability, something that has a lot of opportunity to bring value to the state of North Dakota. As I indicated previously, we are now past our 10-year mark as a test site, which is really exciting considering when we started this. I always like to say that this was really an experiment. We didn't know exactly what it was going to take to integrate drones and now AAM vehicles into the National Airspace System. And so here we are 10 years later, and in fact, coming up on 11 years, and we're still around. We're still bringing value to industry, to the state of North Dakota. We are now having to think longer term and plan ahead as the FAA and industry starts bringing new rules to the table. There's going to be new opportunity for working with industry to come up with standards and policy that will help bring a sense of stability and predictability to this industry. Today, it's a little bit still like in the early days of the automobile, where people are building things and trying things, and some of them will succeed and some of them will fail. But as we work with industry, as we work with the FAA, we're learning quickly what does it really take to do this safely, and ultimately to help the United States build, our entrepreneurs to build businesses that will be successful in North Dakota and in the United States. And so the last part of this presentation I'm going to talk about is really the Vantis program. Many folks have heard of Vantis and understand it to be our statewide Beyond Visual Line of Sight program. This is a program that's administered by the Northern Plains UAS test site, and it is working with our partners at Thales to bring really the solution for bringing scalable, repeatable, beyond visual line of sight UAS operations to North Dakota as well as the rest of the United States. This really has a history. As we, as a test site, we're working with industry. We understood really quickly that to do this the right way, it wasn't going to be one effort by industry to bring this forward. We talk about shared infrastructure concepts quite a bit. You'll see in this picture, there is a interstate highway, there is a railroad, and there are power lines. And this infrastructure all is in the same corridor. So you have the road, you have the rail, you have the power lines. If every one of these entities that oversee this particular infrastructure, in this case, the roadway would be the Department of Transportation, they wanted to invest in using drones to inspect roadway conditions or weather conditions or looking for accidents or other hazards on the roadway, it would be a pretty large investment to bring that capability just for the roadway system. But if you're going to bring it to the roadway system and you only have to go, a stone's throw away to see the rail, why don't we also build the system that lets us see and inspect the rails? And so the communication systems, the systems needed to see and avoid other airspace traffic in the area can be applicable to all this infrastructure. And that's really at the heart of the concept of Vantis, is that this is the North Dakota system that brings BVLOS capability. And whether you're a road transportation infrastructure operator, rail operator, electrical infrastructure operator, agriculture, and in the future, logistics and passenger carrying, we can bring that infrastructure that can be used by all of those entities and therefore bring the economies of scale to play so that not any one of these entities is responsible for doing all of the R&D, the development, and the innovation around making this concept into a reality. And so what is really Vantis? And that's a question we get all the time. It's really four large topics. The first one is remote infrastructure. These are, as you'll see in the slides, surveillance sensors or radars. This is the same thing as any other air traffic control radar. The problem today is that air traffic control radars were designed with traditional aviation traffic in mind, and so they tend to look up and away at higher altitudes. Well, some of these use cases for drones and UAS are at lower altitudes, and so we have to deploy additional radars in order to get to that kind of coverage closer to the surface of the Earth. And you also need radios, the ability to command and control the aircraft. No different than if you have your cell phone and you're driving on the road, your cell phone hops from tower to tower to keep that connectivity the whole way. We're talking about the same thing, but instead of talking on the phone, it is communicating with your drone. And so you need to have the infrastructure to allow you to do that. You need to have the backhaul data network. Here in North Dakota, we have StageNet, which is operated by our Information Technology Department of North Dakota. And this is the fiber infrastructure that's already in the ground here in North Dakota. So wherever we may place a radar or a radio, we can connect that into that fiber network, and we can set it up so that it's a secure network that can't be just viewed by anybody. And you need to then have an ability to monitor that infrastructure. And so in the bottom right part of the screen, you'll see the Mission and Network Operations Center, the MNOC, as we commonly call it. It's at the MNOC where all of these sensors are monitored for health. It's one thing to have a radar out there and spinning and collecting data to see and avoid other aircraft, but how do you know that it's operating at the level you need it to operate to support safe flight? And that's what's happening at the MNOC, is we have what we call performance requirements designed for all of the infrastructure on the system. And if any one of these pieces or equipment or processes are not operating as expected, this is where it is alerted at the Mission and Network Operations Center, and then we can take action to deal with whatever concern may be happening, or quite simply just land the aircraft to make sure that we're not creating additional risk in the airspace system. And in the bottom left, ultimately, the final piece of this is the actual aircraft itself, the UAS, and in the future, AAM, Advanced Air Mobility Vehicles. You need to have an aircraft that is operating in a safe way. And just like in traditional aviation, we have all different kinds of aircraft, from smaller 4-passenger training type aircraft all the way to large commercial operations. In the future, we'll see UAS and AAM vehicles of similar a scale, of different types of aircraft that will need to be accommodated on this network. And so part of Vantis is also determining what are the requirements with the aircraft? What does every aircraft that's operating on a system like this need? And, from its operational performance capability, its communication, and ultimately what kind of standards or certification are we going to be needing in the future for aircraft to operate in a BVLOS capacity. So Vantis has been going on for quite a while. It was funded originally in 2019, with its initial investment, and it has been achieving various milestones. Ultimately, as a state, we went through a process where we knew as a state of North Dakota, we could come up with the concept and the requirements for this kind of system, but we needed industry to bring forth the requisite technology to actually execute on this. And so we went through a procurement process, and that's what led us to our partnership with Thales today. And Thales is the partner that we're moving forward with in terms of them bringing all of their engineering expertise, their radar expertise, their systems expertise that actually makes this happen. And so we would not be able to achieve this without our partner. And as we have continued to grow and develop the Vantis network, Vantis has achieved some of the firsts in the nation. We've received beyond visual line of sight approvals from the FAA using the actual system as what we call an electronic observer. So instead of a pilot on board in the aircraft seeing and avoiding, we have somebody sitting in front of a screen who is looking for traffic and working with the pilot to remain well clear of other traffic in the airspace system. This type of concept has been done through various stepping stones in the past, but Vantis really brought forth a cohesive, scalable way of doing it. And we're confident that the approvals that we've received bring scalability to other parts of North Dakota and the US when other states and entities want to have a Vantis-like system in their area. The MNOC, I've talked a little bit about that before. What you see on the left side of the slide is actually an actual screenshot of what the screens look like. It's inside the MNOC. There's various screens that give the system operators an idea of the health and status of the system. And then you'll see on the right side is just the actual pictures of the radar systems that can be deployed to support Vantis. And then the bottom of the screen is the remote pilot traffic we call HMI. This is the type of screen that a pilot and electronic observer would be looking at so that they can see which targets or aircraft are flying in the area, and they can operate their own aircraft to make sure that they're staying well clear per FAA rules and regulations. Vantis today, we've developed a key site out in the Williston, Watford City area. We're bringing a system online in the Grand Forks region. And as you can see, here's a notional scaling map of what this could look like in North Dakota. We call it the statewide system, but much like cellular technology, it will likely scale to support wherever the use cases are. And so we'll likely see Vantis along infrastructure corridors, again, where your highways, your rail, your electrical infrastructure, your pipeline infrastructure are all co-located. We are also one of the first entities outside of the federal government to receive an agreement with the FAA to actually get the current FAA radar system brought to Vantis. And so instead of us just deploying radars to look for air traffic, we want to ingest existing air traffic control radars into our system. There's already coverage in North Dakota. There's coverage in other parts of the United States. Doing this is a way to efficiently use our resources in North Dakota. No need to bring on radars where there's already radar coverage from an existing FAA radar. Let's look at what they have, and then we can augment with our own radars. And so just recently, we were announced as the first entity outside of the federal government to receive this agreement with the FAA, and that's one step towards growing this capability and bringing scalability, meaning if we can get the North Dakota radars, then what does it look like to bring other radars into the system that bring this capability to other parts of the United States? And with that, I will stop there. That's, again, I'll reiterate, just a scratch the level surface of what the test site does on a day-to-day basis. Thank you for your time and attention and listening to the presentation. There's a lot more that we could look into, so feel free to reach out to me, as you can here. My contact info, by the way, is tjwoods@nd.gov. Send me an email. I'd love to connect with you and chat further. I also want to let you know that we have another one of these Beyond the Buzz events coming up on December 10th at 11 a.m. Central Time. One of the things that, as a test site, we really value our partnership with the FAA. We couldn't do what we do without the Federal Aviation Administration. And so I'm pleased to announce that we're actually going to have a couple of our FAA program friends with us, Pamela Gomez and Sabrina Saunders-Hodge. These two are program managers inside the FAA. They're directors, actually, who oversee the test site program, the Beyond program with the FAA. These programs are really important to the state of North Dakota and to the Northern Plains U.S. test site for getting done what we need to get done for our industry partners. So with that, I again reiterate December 10th at 11 a.m. Central Time. Please join us, and I look forward to that presentation. Thank you for your time today.